Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Donation with Gift of Hope. I'm your host, Olivia Fox, and this is an interactive show where you, the viewers, can call in and ask any questions that you might have about organ and tissue donation in our community. Each week, we're also streaming live at cantv.org/hotline, and you can join our conversation by calling 312-738-1060. Again, that's 312-738-1060, and if you forget, that phone number is at the bottom of your screen. Also, note about the calls: get your calls in before 6:55 so we can make sure to have time to get them all in and answer them. So I know you all have been hearing the commercials, and we're like, talk donation. What type of donation? What's that all about? Donation to charity, education? What are we talking about? In actuality, it's a little bit of both. It's charity to your fellow man and child, as well as education about the topic of organ and tissue donation, and especially what minorities need to know about participating in this process. Ultimately, our sole purpose is to give you enough information to dispel the long-standing myths and misconceptions that run very deep throughout many communities, while helping viewers understand that Gift of Hope is a very honorable and trusted partner in the community. We recognize that minorities have many fears of healthcare entities, and let's face it, some of it's well-founded. But within the last 30 years, with the help of advances in modern medicine, amazing transplant physicians and doctors, our hospitals, religious and community partners, Gift of Hope has really helped turn tragedy to triumph throughout many different communities, and while also supporting donor families and those waiting for a life-saving organ tissue donation on the list. So welcome to our show. Make sure you get those calls in before 6:55, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest for this evening right after our regularly scheduled commercial break.
Nikki's donations made a huge impact on a lot of people. This one right here, sitting next to me especially. When Gift of Hope came to me and asked me for the donation, it made me feel very confident knowing that I can give my baby's heart. This is Nikki's heart beating inside Tanisha's chest.
So when I heard this pound, I'm like, what is that noise? And the nurse said to me, that's your heart.
I carried Nikki for 9 months. Now Tanisha's gonna carry her the rest of her life.
Say yes to donation. Start the conversation with your loved ones today.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Donation with Gift of Hope. I am so, as soon as I can get this to stop playing, I'm so excited to welcome our special guest for the evening. But before we welcome our special guest, I want to give you guys a quick note, a really excellent program that is supporting Gift of Hope and supporting our cause, actually through a financial donation, is a concert called Without Borders. It's a concert coming to Chicago November 29th. It's happening at the Anthem Theater, and it's a collaboration of Enrique Allende and Bradley Wisk, the Mexican and American, respectively, join their passion and efforts on projects to share a message of unity, bringing Mexico and the U.S. and ultimately the world together through their voices. So this is an amazing, amazing concert with an amazing background and purpose, and so they are giving some funds to Gift of Hope based on this concert. So check it out November 29th at the Anthem Theater. Don't forget to check that out. It's going towards Gift of Hope. And I'm so excited to welcome our special guest for the evening, Miss Megan Craig from the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Megan is the program director for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and we are so excited to have her because they are a very, very special community partner, an important community partner to Gift of Hope. So we're excited to have her here to tell a little bit about her personal story and connection to donation, as well as some of the programs and resources offered by the National Kidney Foundation. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
How about you give us a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Megan Craig. I'm the Director of Programs for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, as Olivia already said. I'm also a living kidney donor, so that's my connection to organ donation.
A very special connection, I must say.
Yes, it's been a huge part of my life since I became a donor, but as the Director of Programs, I design and implement patient and professional programs for people living with kidney disease, nephrology professionals, and then, like you said, work with community partners who also focus on organ donation.
Absolutely. So, can you tell us a little bit about the functions of the National Kidney Foundation, and what are some of the what is it in place for? What is your mission, and what do you guys do?
Sure. So we focus on a three-pronged approach: prevention, education, and empowerment. So what we're looking to do is educate people who either have kidney disease or are at high risk for kidney disease about how they can either stop themselves from becoming kidney disease patients, or if they already are, how they can help themselves to live a healthier life with kidney disease, all the way through to getting, hopefully, a transplant and living the rest of their lives with that.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that our viewers know from watching that this is a perfect partnership and a very natural partnership for Gift of Hope to work with the Kidney Foundation of Illinois, because, of course, people come to us when, or they think about us when they get to the point of needing a transplant. But for us, even though we are in the business of transplantation, we really, really would wish that the list wasn't so long. And we do love to provide that education in the community so that people don't have to get to us and they don't have to get to that point where they're in need. But, even with all of the education and prevention, people still get to that point. So it's important to, like you said, have the education about people that are at risk, but then also how to deal with it once you do have those.
Definitely, and I'm sure you've talked about this before on the show, but African Americans are about 4 times more likely than the general population to develop kidney disease sometime in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
And as well, kidney failure. So more than half the waiting list, which is about 3,400 people for a kidney in Illinois right now, more than half those people are African American, even though African Americans only make up 13% of the population.
Absolutely, and you know what? That's for several different reasons why I feel like African Americans make up this list, but there are some of those risk factors that end up leading to, kidney illness, kidney disease, kidney failure that are more common when the genetics of, somebody that's of a minority, for example, African American or Hispanic descent. Can you talk about some of those risk factors that normally end up leading people to that?
For sure. So uncontrolled high blood pressure and uncontrolled diabetes are by far the 2 leading causes of kidney failure in adults. So African Americans, about 50% of the adult African American population has high blood pressure or hypertension. So that's an obvious leading cause of this disparity in the number of people who have kidney disease. So we're trying to work to educate people through a few different programs to be sure people know if you've got, a little sugar, if you've got diabetes, if you've got high blood pressure, these aren't things that can be ignored. A lot of times when we're at our free kidney screenings called Kidney Mobile, in case anybody wants to attend one of those, we'll hear people say, I'd just rather not know, I won't go through the screening. So we definitely try to encourage people. Not knowing doesn't stop those things from progressing to kidney disease. Knowing could stop that, and nobody wants to end up on dialysis. And if you can avoid needing a transplant, all the better, because with thousands of people ahead of you on the list, it's not always possible.
It's not a quick process.
Not a quick process, not a cure either. So, just because you've had a transplant doesn't mean you don't have kidney disease anymore. So
can you talk about some of the programs and resources that you guys offer? I mean, I have been to several of the different things, but you mentioned the Kidney Mobile.
Sure.
So I know that there, like you mentioned, it is often minority communities and often impoverished communities that do end up, being those kidney patients. So what are some of the things that you guys offer in those communities in regards to the either public education or the, like you said, the testing and the screening?
Sure. So Kidney Mobile season is from March to November, just because it's a giant vehicle and we don't like to drive it in the snow if we can help it. But during those screenings, which we set up in communities throughout Chicago and actually throughout Illinois, we do what we call downstate swings, where we go all the way to the bottom of the state, including Cairo, which is a very high need place in the state. We take the Kidney Mobile, we work with partner organizations, and we hold about 70 screenings throughout the year in places that have abnormally high poverty rates and or abnormally high diabetes rates those usually go hand in hand, as I'm sure you can imagine.
And so will people normally be able to find them at their own event, or are they normally at like a health fair already going on in the community, or can you just find them? Is it just kind of...
So we have a calendar on our website,
Awesome.
and we have taken out ads all over the place. You should be able to find that website, I hope, very easily, but it's nkfi.org, like National Kidney Foundation Illinois.org. And that calendar is easily accessible, and you can search it by zip code, so you can find the screening that's going to be closest to you.
That's awesome. So National Kidney Foundation, nkfi.org is a great place to find the resources for the Kidney Foundation. But if you, for some reason, if you can't remember nkfi.org, go over to giftofhope.org or email me at ofox@giftofhope.org, and we will get you connected with the Kidney Foundation. If you're interested in having them out at your event or within your community, please feel free to reach out if you cannot remember nkfi.org, even though that's actually kind of easier than giftofhope.org. So nkfi.org, remember that, viewers.
People get the letters mixed up sometimes.
Yeah,
you can
the order.
imagine. It's a little-
So I think that I wanted to talk about the outreach that you guys do with the dialysis centers and educating those, the people that work in there and the things like that. Can you talk a little bit about those education programs that you have?
Sure. So we educate people in dialysis centers, both the patients and the professionals. On the professional side, we hold a couple of professional programs throughout the year where we offer continuing education credits to all disciplines of professionals. So everyone needs continuing education, whether it's your social worker or your nurse or even your nephrologist. So we do offer programs for those folks kind of throughout the year. And then for patients, we hold programs called Living with Kidney Disease and Transplantation. And those programs focus on everything from the psychosocial aspects of living either with earlier stage kidney disease, on dialysis, all the way through post-transplantation. We offer information there for caregivers, and that's important too, because sometimes the caregivers get kind of left behind when it comes to the education portion or the networking. And I think the most important thing that we do with people who are either on dialysis or have transplants is connect them with each other. There's a huge need for networking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that people just know that they're not alone, which is, I think, difficult sometimes, especially right when people are diagnosed. Sometimes you're diagnosed and you have to go on dialysis right away. And that's got to be such a scary time for people.
And that actually goes back to something that you mentioned earlier about people kind of being afraid. It's a taboo topic to, 1, find out that you have this issue, 2, to talk about it, 3, to do all of those steps that you need to do to, maintain yourself through that illness or even get better. So, knowing that those programs and things are out there and that those resources are out there are very important. And I'm so glad that our viewers can hear about this, because I remember when my mom first got ill and we really felt like there were no peer networks for, people dealing with, going through dialysis and, kidney disease and kidney failure. So I think it's really important for the community to know that there is that education out there. Another thing I wanted to say is this is also why we're so perfectly aligned, Gift of Hope and the National Kidney Foundation, because we do provide both that public education and the professional education. Because while we need to educate ourselves, we want to make sure the people are taking care of us
Definitely
know about exactly what it is that we're going through. So I really hope that our viewers remember and check out nkfi.org, because there's a lot of good programs and resources that are valuable in the community. Let's see. I know that we have had some collaborative outreach efforts. We talked about in minority communities and things like that. We actually did a couple weeks ago. We co-sponsored a women's conference in which both my mom, who's a community engagement relations person at NKFI, and myself, we both got to go out and speak about kidney disease in the African American community and also about getting transplant and things like that. So we're always grateful that those partnerships are available and that we have that support. And I think, again, that it's important for the community to know that NKFI is a resource and that they are interested in being and investing in the community and investing in the education of the community with this topic.
And I mean, that's one of the most important things we do. We accept phone calls and we're there, usual business hours, but, we can answer almost any question people have. If we don't know the answer in-house, we'll find it. So in another step to making people feel like they're not alone, especially when they're first diagnosed, we do tend to get a lot of calls from people, where do I go from here? What should I eat? Anything like that, we have the resources to answer.
That's awesome. So kind of like a Google for people with kidney disease and chronic kidney illnesses.
Yes, we do a lot of let me Google that for you. Yeah,
That's good. That's
yeah.
good. It's necessary because, again, people need that support. And
Yes,
need to
people
know
get
that.
flustered and they don't know exactly what direction to face next. So.
So I wanted to jump into a little bit about your personal connection to donation that you mentioned in the beginning when you were introducing yourself, and that you were a living kidney donor. So we have talked about it and mentioned it a little bit in past shows, and we've even gotten calls of people asking, well, how do you participate as a living donor? So can you tell us a little bit about your journey with that, as far as how you decided to become a donor, who you helped, and what that process was like for you?
Sure. So I became a living donor almost exactly 7 years ago in November of 2011. And I don't have a spectacular story for why I donated. I just sort of wanted to. I had known a family who had a baby with a liver disease, and that was the first time I ever heard of living donation. They had talked about listing her or possibly one of them giving her part of their liver. So she unfortunately passed away.
Oh, wow.
And about a year later, I don't know exactly what made me wake up one morning and call, but I decided to try to become a living liver donor.
Wow.
So I called Northwestern, which is where my primary care doctor was. That's the only reason I chose that hospital. And asked if I could become a living liver donor for someone. They did not take non-directed liver donors at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so they suggested or mentioned, well, we do have a living kidney donor program for non-directed donors. So if you'd like to donate a kidney, we'll take one of those. And so that's actually how I became a kidney donor. I didn't know anything about kidneys. I kind of forgot I had them until someone decided to, try to take one out. And then you really find out you have them because they do all kinds of testing on you to make sure you're healthy and well enough to be a donor. They want to make sure first and foremost that they're not hurting the donor.
Absolutely.
Or the potential donor. So luckily I apparently am super healthy, passed all those tests. And after about 9 months, I was part of a paired exchange, which we can talk a little more about. But
we mentioned one last week.
Okay,
so we can
I know
revisit
there was
it a little bit.
popular one at UIC recently. So, so I was part of a paired exchange through Northwestern and actually Children's. It was Children's Memorial at the time. Now it's Lurie Children's.
Okay.
And my kidney went to a then 20-month-old boy. He's 8 now. He's pretty awesome. He's got red hair and he's very funny. And about 10 days after the transplant happened, I was able to, well, actually my family was able to meet his whole family.
Wow.
It was quite the event because his family is gigantic.
Wow.
And my family's just 4 people, so
He had a lot of support.
He had a lot of support. So we've become very close. My mother and his grandmother are best friends.
Wow.
His mother and I are very close, and of course he and I have a very special relationship as well. So.
Wow, well, you are definitely a special person, and I'm not sure of the numbers of how many people are just altruistic living donors, but you have to be of a very small percentage.
Yeah, it's not a ton because most people just don't know that you can do that. I really believe if more people knew living donation was as simple as it is. I mean, I'm not going to pretend it's not major surgery. It is, but I was able to go back to work less than a week later. It's just, I have no lasting effects from it. I'm absolutely fine. And someone else gets to live a more normal life. I mean, there's nothing better. It's been an absolutely life-changing event. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you actually mentioned also an important part in the beginning is that you reached out to Northwestern, who was the home of your primary care doctor, But that's also important because you have to reach out to a transplant center in
That's
order
right.
to become a living donor. So there are 9 transplant centers in our service area. Around here, we're right by UIC, Rush, Northwestern. So there are several in this area, but you do have to go to a transplant center to inquire about becoming a living donor.
That's right. There's no real central location to go to, so that's kind of a weird piece of the process right now, is that it's sort of, I think that also would probably increase altruistic donation if it were a more streamlined process. The way you can sign up to be a deceased donor through the Secretary of State's office when you get your driver's
makes
license.
sense.
It would be probably easier if it were centralized, but it's not too hard to find the phone numbers. We do have the listings for all of the transplant centers in Illinois and the entire Midwest
At
on
the
our
website? What does it tell us the website again?
nkfi.org.
nkfi.org. Perfect. And so I just want to finish up with we like to leave with a word from the wise from our guest. And with you being expert and with the National Kidney Foundation, don't give me that look because you are. But we wanted to know, if you have 60 seconds to talk with someone who is suffering with kidney disease, what would you tell them?
I would want them to know that they're not alone, that help is out there, that their questions can be answered, and that there are other people who know how they feel. So even if they feel like no one else in the world has ever gone through this, it's pretty common, and we can offer the help that they need.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's amazing to have that resource out there, and I'm so glad that you were able to come on and discuss. It looks like we did get a caller before the show is over, so you can go ahead and put the caller through. Hey caller, what's your name and question?
What was the hardest part about donating a kidney?
What's the hardest part about donating a kidney?
Yeah.
Yes. I think the hardest part actually has nothing to do with the actual donation, but it's that you have someone new to worry about after you become a donor. So after you become a donor, your kidney's not yours anymore. It's floating around in somebody else, and you just have to cross your fingers and hope that thing keeps working the way it's supposed to, because now it's in somebody you care about, and especially for altruistic donors, somebody you didn't know you cared about that now you do. I'm sure it's even harder for directed donors to realize that someone they've loved maybe their entire lives is now depending on this. So I'd say that's the hardest part, is the sort of fear surrounding what comes next, what might happen. So hopefully it's all happy stories. So far, mine's a happy story, but you never know.
Interesting. I'm glad you shared that, because I feel like if I was going into it, I'd be worried about more the physical aspect of it. But you're right, there's a whole separate mental aspect of it too, so that's important. And thank you to that young caller. I'm so excited to hear that there was somebody so young tuning into this great information. So I think we actually got another caller, and we have a couple more minutes. Actually, we don't have a couple more minutes. So I'm so grateful to Megan Craig for joining us. If you guys have any questions about kidney disease, want to get the Kidney Mobile out, you want to come to some of their events that they have living with kidney disease, go to nkfi.org. Again, that is nkfi.org. And if for some reason you cannot remember those numbers. If you couldn't get to a pen fast enough, you can reach out to me at ofox@giftofhope.org, and I will direct you right to the National Kidney Foundation's website, and I could probably direct you right to Megan. So please let us know if you have questions or if you would like this education or participation in your community. So thank you so much again, Megan, for joining us. You have given us a wealth of information about kidney disease and about being a living donor, which is very important. You're a special group. So please join us next week for another edition of Let's Talk Donation with Gift of Hope, and we'll get some more good information and education. See you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.